This is Dr. Childs, and in this video I'm going to introduce to you the research process. Now, it is very important for you to learn in English 1301 that research is not just a process of skimming a few internet sources looking for good quotations to put into your research papers. Instead, research is a long-term, in-depth process that requires you to do a lot of searching and a lot of reading and a lot of note-taking. It is very time consuming, but you should also find it to be rewarding in that it allows you to learn a great deal about your topic and enables you to write a more well-informed paper. By Sunday, November 25th, that is the last day of Module 5, you will need to choose a topic and compose your research question. Earlier if possible, the earlier the better in fact. This is the topic and research question for your iSearch paper, and in this presentation I'll expand a bit more on this idea of a research question so you'll understand what I'm getting at. This research question needs to be posted on the designated discussion forum in Module 5. I will read these questions, these research questions, and comment on them to help you refine them or narrow them as needed. And that's why I suggest that you post them as early as possible so I can give you feedback in a timely manner and you can course correct if need be. The first step of the research process, and this is what you should start doing right away, even if you're not exactly sure what topic you're going to write about yet, is preliminary research. Now, as the name implies, preliminary research is the very first stage of the research process. You start doing this sometimes even before you have a topic for your paper. For instance, if you're kind of thinking about different topics for your research paper, like what is the future of green car manufacturing, or what would it cost to travel to Japan for a month, or something like that. You may be kind of juggling a couple of different research questions, and at the preliminary stage you can kind of search around and read a little bit here and there to give you an idea of how you want to narrow your topic. Your goal at this point is to read widely, to read as much as you can, to learn as much as you can, and this will help you decide what it is exactly that you want to write about. Before you really get into a research project, any research project, you should obtain breadth of knowledge. So you're not just looking for quotations or skimming for something to say. You want to learn as much as you can about your topic. This is how people manage to write long papers in college. It's because they've done so much research, they know so much, they know a lot to talk about. Now, as you are doing research, your preliminary research, you should be taking notes. The worst thing to do when you're doing research is to just kind of skim over some sources and don't record the citation information for those sources and don't write down the information that you come across. That's the worst thing to do because you may kind of remember it later. You may accidentally plagiarize it, or you may remember that you saw it on a website somewhere, but you can't remember what website you saw it on. And so at the last minute, you're desperately searching for citation information when you should have written it down in the first place and saved yourself some time. So while you are doing your preliminary research, take notes, write down any ideas that jump out at you or catch your eye or that kind of catch your interest. Put quotation marks around anything that you take word for word from a source. You always want to write down the name, the page number, and the name of the source or author. Write down the complete bibliographic information, everything that you would need to create a works cited entry. Because if you do that the first time you look at a source, it saves you from having to go back and do it later on. You want to avoid copying long passages from your sources when you're taking notes. Now, there are a couple of reasons for that. One of them is that if you copy long passages from sources in your notes, those long passages risk winding up in your paper. And that is problematic if you don't cite it, because then it's plagiarism. It's problematic if you do cite it, because you shouldn't be loading your paper down with really long quotations from your sources. It's a bad idea to take long passages, because then you're not really engaging with what you read, analyzing it, picking out what might be useful. You're just kind of taking it wholesale to save yourself the trouble of thinking about it. So instead of that, you want to look for short quotations that you might potentially use in your research paper. The second step of the research process is to develop a research question. Your preliminary research will give you a basic overview of your topic, like, say, the future of solar power. You will learn broadly. You'll learn as much as you can, and that preliminary research should help you realize what else you need to know in order to gain an in-depth understanding of your topic. Now, the preliminary research will not teach you everything about your topic, but it should help you figure out what it is that you still need to know. So at this point, you want to come up with a research question that will be answered by further research. The answer to this question, eventually, when you are able to answer it, will provide your thesis statement. The third step of the research process is to focus your research. After you have come up with a research question, you want to resume your research and try to answer that question. At this stage, your goal is to gain depth of knowledge. So at the preliminary research stage, you were trying to obtain breadth of knowledge. Now you are going for depth. You want to inform and support your specific argument. You are no longer just trying to learn everything you can about a topic. You are trying to inform and support your particular argument. At this stage, be sure to take careful notes and document your sources. Begin locating quotations. Remember that the research journal is a portion of your grade for this assignment. These notes are what will go in your research journal. And here's a little time-saving tip you can use while you're doing research. Follow the works cited trail. If you find one good book or article with a really good, substantial works cited page, you can look up and read the sources on that works cited page. So you're kind of following the trail of breadcrumbs. You're piggybacking on the research of others. This is a great time-saving technique. The fourth step of the research process is, of course, to draft the paper. At this stage, you need to incorporate quotations or paraphrases while you are drafting your paper. Don't wait until the end to add quotations or facts or information from your outside sources. Usually that will result in your source material not being integrated very cohesively. And so you should weave those into your writing while you are drafting the original version of the paper. Document sources on the works cited page and in the text using the in-text citations while you are writing, not at the end of the writing process. This is a huge mistake that beginning students will often make. They wait until the night before something is due or the night of something being due to add the works cited page and in-text citations. Now, this is problematic for two reasons. Sometimes a person will run out of time or forget to add those citations, and then the paper turns out to be plagiarized. So that's very bad. The other problem that can arise is that a person can lose citation information. You can forget where you got that quotation from, or you might forget what page it was on. And so then there you are, the middle of the night, desperately flipping through a book or searching through your web sources to try and find where you got a quotation. If you write that down, all that information down, the first time you take the quotation out of that source, you save yourself a lot of work in the long run. Step 5, finally, check for gaps. This should be part of your revision process. As you are drafting and revising, you need to consider whether or not you have enough sources. Have you met the minimum number of sources and the minimum number of scholarly sources? Remember, you have to have at least 2 scholarly sources and a total of at least 6 sources. Have you located enough long, scholarly, in-depth sources, or are you relying too much on a lot of short articles or websites? You want to be sure that your research looks like it has been very thorough. Ask yourself if your sources are relevant to your topic, or did you just grab the first 6 you come across? Let's be honest, a lot of times that happens. You don't so much look for the best sources, you just grab the first 6 that you get. Now, that is counterproductive in the long run because it means that you are working with sources that aren't that good. So let me suggest that you take this opportunity at step 5 of the research process to ask whether or not you have found enough good sources. You really might need to go back and locate a few more, so keep in mind that your research is never done in a research paper until you actually turn the paper in. That is a process that is ongoing and that you have to revisit periodically throughout the process of writing the paper. And that's it for that presentation. As always, please let me know if you have any questions about any of this material.